Hello and welcome to part 3 in this short series looking at the VLOOKUP function in Microsoft Excel. Up to now we've concentrated on using VLOOKUP to find an exact match in a data table, but this time we're going to look at the other way you can use VLOOKUP, which is to find a close match. Now that isn't strictly true, as we'll see when we put the function together. So what I'm going to do is just put a VLOOKUP function together first of all, and the idea here is, as you can see, it's a fairly typical example that we've got some examination results, and all we want Excel to do is to provide a grade automatically based on the result of the test, and the information will come from this data table over here. So we'll set the function up then and you'll see how it all works. So again, first thing we do obviously is select the cell we want the result to appear in, and then we start to type the formula. So it's equals VLOOKUP, open the bracket or parentheses, and the first piece of information, as you should know by now, is what is the piece of information that Excel will use to retrieve the data from the data table. And in this case it's the information in column B, so I'll click on the first value there, B4, type a comma. Next thing we need to tell Excel is where the actual data table is, and it's over here, so just need to select the range. As you know, you could name this range if you want to, but once you've selected it, a good idea is to make it an absolute reference. Once you've selected a range, the easiest way to do that is to press the F4 key on the keyboard, to put little dollar signs around to make it an absolute reference, comma, and the final piece of information Excel needs to know is what column is the data that you want coming back from, and in this case it's column 2, the grades, and so we type in the number 2 there, close the bracket or parentheses if you prefer, and click on the tick. Now we get the grade D. Now I just want to show you why calling it a close match is inaccurate. If you look at the result of the test, it's actually 58, and if we go over to our data table and if we manually look which is closest to 58, well, as far as we would be concerned, it's the number 60. So we might give grade C because 58 is closer to 60, but that's not how examination results work. As we know, it actually is based on a value between two numbers, or a range of values between two numbers. So for example, if you score anything up to 39 you'll get an F, anything up to 49 you'll get an E, and so on. And so what Excel does, it takes the number 58 and it looks at the data table and it finds that value in a range between two other values. So in this case it's finding 58 between 50 and 60, so it says yes, it's between that range. Then Excel returns the value that corresponds to the lowest number in that between the range, so in this case it's 50. So it goes back to 50, brings back the value D in the grade column. So I'll do one more calculation, and this time I will use I'll do two things. First of all, I will name the table. So if I just select the range, and again very important to select only the data in the range, not the column headings. So I'll select that range and I will just click in the name box up here where it says E4 at the moment, and I'm going to type grades in there. So that's the name of that data table, and I'll come into cell C5, which is where I want my next result to appear. Go to the paste function button, little FX button there, bring my dialog into view, and what we're looking for is VLOOKUP. Now it is on my most recently used list there, but I'll actually find it in the correct list of functions, which is in lookup and reference. So I'm going to click on lookup and reference, scroll down to the bottom, and there's VLOOKUP. Click OK, and again, as you know, we get this dialog which allows you to enter the information for the formula. We can move this out of the way, so just shift out of the way a little bit so you can see the information on the screen. The lookup value is in column B, as we know, so in this case it's going to be the cell in B5 there, so click on that. Table array, just click in that. Now this time I've already named it, so all I need to do is press the F3 key, which brings up my named ranges. This hardware from the other example we've been looking at, but grades is what I'm interested in here. So click on grades, OK, that puts the data table information in. The column index number is number 2, because that's where the grades are. And finally, range lookup, I can leave that blank, or I can type in true. Now by doing that I'm just telling Excel to find a number between two other values as opposed to finding a precise match. If I type in false, as you know, it will look for a precise match. So I can leave that blank, click OK, and we get the grade F going, which is precisely correct. Now I can just copy those formulas down there, as you see. Now obviously with using a named range, if I just click on each of those results, you can see the only thing that's changing is the value for the lookup reference B6, B7, and so it's just using the relative cell reference as it goes down to update the formula. But it always looks at the grades data table, and it always retrieves the information from column 2 because we don't need to update those bits of information at all. Now if I copy these formulas down, these lookup formulas down to these blank cells, you'll see what happens is we get the grade F put into the cells, which is not really what we'd like to see. What's happening is that Excel is assuming that these blank cells have got a 0 value, and in that case it's going to the data table and saying, oh, there's 0, grade F, and returning grade F. We don't really want that, and what we can do is we can combine the if function in Excel with another function, which is an error checking function or a blank cell checking function, and combine that with the VLOOKUP to return a more friendly or a more useful result in column C. And you'll see how that works if I actually put the calculation together. So at the moment we've got this equals VLOOKUP in there. I'm just going to delete those formulas out of those cells, select C10, which is where I want the result to appear, and start to type out this new formula, which is equals if, open bracket or parentheses, and then we type is blank. And what we're asking Excel to do is to look at the cell B10 in this case and see if it's blank. And so we put that value between brackets, so is blank B10, and then we do a comma, and then we want to tell Excel what to do if that cell is blank, in other words if the result is true. And what I want to happen is simply to put a little dash in the cell indicating there's no entry in there. And then we need to tell the if function, or the isBlank function if you like, what to do if the value is true or false, beg your pardon. So if it's not blank, if it's got an actual result in there. And so we type a comma, and this time we want the VLOOKUP function. And so we type out the VLOOKUP function. VLOOKUP, open bracket, as if we're typing out a regular VLOOKUP, so the value is again cell B10, that's where we're looking. Now at the moment, because I'm typing that formula here, I can't unfortunately click on that cell, so I've got to type it in manually. So B10, type a comma, the table range is grades, we know that, so it's the named range, comma, and again column 2 is where we want the result from. Close the bracket for the VLOOKUP, close the bracket for the if function, and then click on the tick to accept the whole thing, and we get a dash, which is what I want to happen. Now if I put a result into that cell, let's say the person's come back and scored 65, we get a grade. If it's blank, if I just delete that value, we get a dash. So in other words, if nothing's been entered into that cell, Excel will give us a more friendly outcome and give us a showing basically there's nothing in there, as opposed to putting a grade in there, which can be misleading. If someone's looking at the information table, might assume the person's got an F grade instead of it simply being the case that the result hasn't been entered. Now then, what I'm going to do is simply copy that formula back up the table, and I'll copy it down the rest of the table there as well. So now what we've got that is blank checking formula all the way down. And so if I need to delete any of these results for some reason, delete one there, delete one there, it puts a dash in now. And if we add in correct results anywhere on the table, it automatically puts a grade in as normal. So there we go, that seems to be all working fine. That's just a way of upgrading or updating your spreadsheets to make them more user-friendly. Obviously when you create your own spreadsheets you know what's supposed to happen, but sometimes when you hand them off to other people and they start to put actual information in, strange things can happen, and using VLOOKUP is one of those things where if they enter the wrong information or no information, they can get some odd results, and it's a good idea just to make sure that your spreadsheets are user-friendly, and using, in this case, is blank with the if function is a great way of just tidying them up and making them much more useful to other people. So that concludes this look at the VLOOKUP function. Hope you enjoyed that and it was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.